Everyone likes to talk about energy, right? You know, good energy, bad energy. The world is just energy. You know, there is no God. There's just energy, this big ball of energy. That's what we are. Do we really know what the hell we're talking about? I don't think so. But that's not bad. That's not bad. I think it's cool to keep on talking about energy and to recognize it. You don't have to be, quantum physicist to be able to talk about energy. I don't think that only those people should be allowed to talk about energy. As a matter of fact, I think that we should be talking about energy. I'm glad that people are talking about energy. If calling God energy helps you live a better life and be a better person, then that's fine. But there are some pretty cool people who have actually studied this energy really well, and that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about Power versus Force, a book written by David Hawkins. Let's go. So this guy, David Hawkins, okay, he wrote a book called Power versus Force. It's a very good read. You don't have to read the whole thing. The whole beginning part of the book discusses his life, his experience, how he is a healer. It's really good, but the real meat of the book is where he measures energy. And he does so through muscle testing. I'm not sure if you know about muscle testing, but the whole idea behind muscle testing is that your body is energetic, and when you hold something close to it, like mountain spring water, or something that is healthy energy, that the spring of maybe a muscle here, or the testing of a muscle here, and the strength of it, how it is taught, shows that it is good energy, healthy energy. Maybe some medication that's not too good, you can put close to you, get muscle tested, and the muscle goes weak. And this man, David Hawkins, made a graph, and this graph shows the levels of energy, the energies that you and I describe every day. Feelings of guilt, feelings of love, and he put it on this graph, and that's what I'd like to share with you right now. Okay, so this is the chart. This is, or if you want to call it a graph, that Dr. David Hawkins came up with. It's a numerical chart. It has numerical value. I didn't put that here, but if you read the book, you'll see that he actually gives it numerical value every stage of this. It's color-based, emotional-based. I think of it as a spirit-based scale. This encompasses everything that we experience here on Earth as a human being in our society. And I believe he put it in this graph really well, and I can see it reflected in the world around me today. So right now I want to break it down with starting from the bottom up. And the first thing that we come up with right now is shame. Shame is at the bottom. When I think of shame, I think of the story of Adam and Eve. That's what comes up to me. I remember being told as a kid is that Adam and Eve were with God in the garden and everything was nice and happy until they did something wrong. And then that's when they felt shame. That's when they felt we need to cover our bodies because we're naked. They finally realized it. Now, I think that's a good metaphor for people to learn because it's the absence of God. It's the absence of the all-powerful. And the top of the chart, it's the exact lowest. We don't have this, so we have to hide. We have to hide ourselves. And that's what shame is. Shame is usually equated with leading to things like suicide. It gets that low. And when we move up from there, we see the word guilt. Now, guilt, when I think of guilt, I always remember, the first thing that comes to my head is the movie Ray, about the story of Ray Charles, and how his guilt was crippling. It led to addiction, it led to problems in his life, and it was all from something that stemmed from something that happened as a child. And that guilt followed him even to his later years. And that's another type of prison, isn't it? You know, it's the lack of understanding that we come here to make mistakes. We come here to mess things up. It really is the truth. But there are some of us that have a very difficult time being able to forgive ourselves, forgive others. And when we do that, we're stuck in guilt. Above that is apathy. Apathy is lack of enthusiasm, care for others around you, care for your world that you live in, and care for yourself. And I believe that we see apathy when we see addiction. You know, when someone looks from the outside saying, how could they do that to themselves? They have value, they're beautiful, and they're addicted to something and hurting themselves. That's lack of care. That is apathy. And above that is grief. I think that many people who experienced losing a loved one understand grief. I'll always remember grief. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is my mother and how she expressed grief after my father died. I expressed my feelings, and I experienced his death in a way different way that was very healthy, and I was very blessed to have that. And watching her was very difficult because it was indeed like a prison. It was hard to even move forward in life or seeing any kind of hope to get out of it. What I always remember from this bottom part, these four, especially with shame, is that in the book, Dr. David Hawkins expressed about how shame was the one that he was surprised was the lowest. He thought it would be fear. He thought we're a fear-based society, and everything seems to be going wrong once we have too much fear. But when he looked closely, he realized, Shame. Shame is what leads to a person taking their own life. These lower energies are the ones where we completely give up. Now let's see a little glimmer of hope by moving forward into the next part, which is the next levels up. We'll start with fear. Okay, so fear, when you think of fear, you think of something paralyzing, right? Paralyzed with fear. And that's another place that we don't want to be, but maybe it even means that we've been put into action. We're seeing something that's afraid. We're no longer inside of that little cave or inside of that room. Now we're just paralyzed with fear. And the opposite of that, or not opposite, sorry, but moving up forward from that is desire, is no longer being paralyzed. Moving up that scale to desire is, to me, the first glimmer of hope. It's like I want out. I have a huge, strong desire to get out. And the pathway to getting out is anger. Now, anger is really kind of one that I think gets a bad rap. I've studied many different teachers through books, especially through books, and everyone has their own kind of little graph on how to get to higher energies. And this is something that's common in all of them, is that they're always saying anger is not bad. It is not a bad thing. There's always this guilt that's put on anger, or you should be ashamed of your anger. Anger is fighting the oppression that puts you in the lower energies. Anger is good. Any wise person knows this, and I hope that you can see it, because anger is always usually matched up with destruction, but it's not. It doesn't have to be. Anger does not have to be destructive. Focused anger, especially focused anger that's led by leaders who are in the higher energies, like love and reason, they can use that anger to change the world. So anger is very, very important here. And the step above that is pride. When we get to pride, I think it's looking in the mirror and saying, hey, I'm happy with what I see. Finally. Took me a long time, but I really like what I see in the mirror. Narcissus, staring in the mirror all the time. That's pride. And when I think about it in life, I think about the power behind the gay pride movement, and that it has that word pride on it. I remember the movie about Harvey Milk, and about how there was a police officer who saw the parade and thought, these are just obscenities, this is horrible. And I can see where a heterosexual man, probably a Christian man, would see that and think, this is deplorable. You're not supposed to be running around naked in the street or doing any of these crazy things, and this is against everything I believe in. But if you look at this chart and you look, being stuck in the closet and coming out of the closet is shame and guilt and grief. Rising up to pride is busting out of that. Finally be able to give yourself some self-love and look at yourself and think, you know what? I don't have a community that's really pushing for me. I am pushing for myself. I'm trying to find a community, and I have pride in myself. I am worth it. And above pride is courage. And courage is awesome. That's what we all love. That's what the movies are made about, right? It's about heroes. And this is the important part in the graph, because this is where things change. See, what I just went over was the lower levels. This is considered force. This is where you have to push to get what you want. It takes great effort. It takes great strain to get what you want and to move up this part of the chart. This is the force part of the chart. And what Dr. David Hawkins explained is that courage is the shifting point where finally we get to higher energies, we get to power. And when he put neutrality in here, I think that neutrality, when we think about it, it can be considered being impartial, not choosing one side over the other, I mean, we think of neutrality, you can think about it like in war. There's neutrality. It's like, I'm not going to get into it. You're fighting this person's fighting that person. I'm going to stay impartial. The state of being neutral. But in this chart, I think it's different because I think neutrality is actually the point where everything shifts. That's what it's here on this chart for. And what it shifts to, and the first thing that we see is willingness. Now, willingness is defined as the quality or state of being prepared to do something, a readiness, enthusiasm. Okay, now that's what I think we really call energy sometimes. I feel energetic. I feel this thing inside of me that wants to move, that wants to go. And you can't really turn it off. It doesn't really go away. This is power. This is not exhausting. It's not like force. This is your first glimmer at power, your first experience with power. Power of willingness is the first time you get that little flame that gives off heat and energy effortlessly with no problems at all. That is power. And above willingness is acceptance. Acceptance I really like because it's willing to receive something that was formerly seen as like outside. So when you were down lower on the chart, maybe there's more of like a duality. It's like there's good cops and then there's robbers. There's black and white, those kinds of things. I really like acceptance because it's like an awakening to realize, that which I saw was different before, I'm realizing is very much like me. And I'm also willing to accept that their differences are actually very beautiful. This is where we start moving up. This is really good stuff. Reason. When I think of reason, let's go over the definition. I think the definition is the power of the mind to think, understand, and form judgments by a process of logic. It's intellect, intelligence, and also not being controlled by emotion. I love reason. I am a very emotional person. I have been that way since I was a child, and I was very proud of my emotions and my abilities to be able to cry when I need to, laugh when I need to. I knew that other men had problems with this, and then eventually I grew to know that most human beings have a problem with that. So whenever I used to see this part with emotions versus intellect, I used to choose emotion. But when I reached this energy level, once I got this high, it was like an awakening. It was the best way to describe it is I always did good grades, got everything I needed to do to get the A. When I hit reason, there was a reason to learn. There was intelligence. It was something that was able to get my mind to think. And I started realizing why sometimes emotion had to be put on the back burner a bit. Is because thinking and reason could guide me where I need to go, where I can channel my emotions, where I can have them work for me. So I love reason. And I love the fact that reaching this level finally helps you understand why you have an education, why you're studying so much, why intelligence is so important. And I believe that I knew some people in high school that had this. It took me a lot longer, but that's good for them. Let me see. So the next one above that is love. Now, love, we have many different definitions for it. Many different people have their own understanding of it. But from what I know of love is that it's usually intense. The feeling and the affection is intense. It's not just something kind of light. And it's great energy. It can be, we say like, oh, I love this certain, sport team, or I love this certain actor. That's one way to kind of look at it. But because love can be love for a person, but this is something that's a lot stronger than that. It's intense and it is energetic. It is powerful. We also match with people like with romantic love, with sexual love. Regardless of the definition that you want to go by, it is intense. That's what differentiates it from just feeling pretty good. So above that, we're going to get to the word joy. Joy is derived from the word rejoice, feeling of great pleasure and great happiness. But I think this is much bigger than just being happy. And my experience with joy, I would equate it to, or I'd like to match the word with bliss. I hit joy a couple times in my life, only a handful of times, and the best way to describe it was like my soul wanted to laugh nonstop, and there didn't seem to be a reason for it to happen. I also should tell you that this happened while I was, almost every time was when I was fasting and meditating. So I was going through like a little, like maybe health change or spiritual change, but during those times, something hit really strong and it shined through me. It wasn't just something that it was something that other people were able to see. Actually, one of these occasions, the reason I'm trying to think to explain, but one of these occasions I was being threatened by a person. And it was right after this 4 or 5 day fast that I did, and I just got out of meditation, and I didn't know that I was going to hit this joy and this bliss. And I was driving, and I had someone chase me down. And when they finally locked eyes with me and got to me, they completely like melted. I wasn't laughing, I wasn't doing anything, I just looked at them, but there was something shining through me that didn't allow them to do that. They waved me off and then just drove away. Now, I always thought, like, the guy probably could have thought, like, I could have beat this guy up easy. He's some little guy who's silly and happy like a fool, but something was shining through, and that's what makes joy different. That's what I believe. The only other times I experienced outside of meditation was through sex, and that's where I believe, too, that when it comes to that share of energy, that is a really high energy, and I hope that everybody can feel that at some point in their life, because it feels like a presence of God. Now, peace above that is peace is what we usually think of war, right? When you think of peace, you think like there's peacetime, and that's when there's no war, there's no fighting, then finally the disturbances are over. But peace here, I think, means kind of tranquility. And you know what? I do believe that I think that people have hit peace in their life. And I'm going to explain how. I think that we have all had really, really low points in our life where we were about ready to break. And sometimes something that is otherworldly steps in. You can believe it's an ancestor, maybe a grandparent who loved you, or maybe even your parent. You can believe that it may be an angel. I'm not sure what it is, but usually at those breaking points when we're about to crack and the load is just too much to bear, we've experienced sometimes that something steps in and gives you complete peace and calm during those times. And it's temporary, but that, I believe, is the experience of peace. And I do know people who have experienced that and try to fight for it all their lives. In their own peaceful way, to make sure that we have that in this world and grow that in this world, because it's very needed. It's almost like inviting angels to come and play, because you want to create that for the world and for our environment, especially in times of distress. And at the top of this chart is enlightenment. And when it comes to enlightenment, I don't believe I've known or met anybody who's ever been who's enlightened. I know that some people say that they are, or like to believe that they are, but I believe that if you're in the presence of somebody who's enlightened, there's something shining through them that would make almost equal to being in the presence of God. It's they're channeling that much of a powerful energy through themselves. And so this is the chart when it goes from the bottom to the top. Like I said, I encourage you to write down in the comments down below which word pops out to you here, which is the one that touches you most, affects you most, or one that you're living with, or the one, if you want to vent it out, go ahead and dump out your stuff on the comments of the one that you want to say goodbye to, whether it's grief or, fear. And I love this chart. I really found a way to make it work in my life. It actually reminds me of the colors, the chakra system, what we're built from, we're supposed to be made up from as human beings, So when I see it as always being a part of me, this chart, and I like to use it in some way. And that's what I think I'm going to do next. Is I would like you to see how you can look at this chart. Okay, so now I already went over it. How can you use this chart in your daily life? How can you use it to look at what's going on around you, especially right now during times of anger, and maybe see, like, why are we here, and can this be a good thing? Thank you for watching. I hope you just liked what you saw right now. I hope it gave you a pretty good understanding of how it works, different energy levels. And if you can, check out the book, David Hawkins, Power versus Force.